Welcome to Ministry of Grace and our study on the book of Revelation. Today we'll be looking at chapter 5, a scene in the throne room of God where the Lamb will finally take the scroll and all of heaven will worship him. Verse 1, Then I saw in the right hand of him who was seated on the throne a scroll written within and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Well, first of all, we have to look at the word for scroll. That's the Greek word biblios. It means a scroll. Today we would translate it as book. Actually, the word biblos would be translated as book. The word biblios would be translated as little book, or maybe even pamphlet. This is a scroll that's got words written on the inside and then a summary of it written on the outside and sealed with 7 seals. This type of scroll was typically used for contracts, typically real estate contracts. As a piece of property was purchased, people would write the agreement on the scroll, they would roll it up and seal it, and then write a summary on the outside of it. The word sealed is katasphragizo, which is made up of kata, which is an intensifier, and sphragizo, which means to seal. This particular scroll was sealed 7 times, and the more seals the scroll had on it, the more important it was. So we see that this is a very important legal document. And the seals were typically made, like you see in some craft stores today, with a little bit of wax added to it, and then a ring that the owner would wear that had a signet on it. That is his own personal identification. And it was typically worn on the small finger, and it was worn facing outward so that they could seal a document by pressing the ring into the soft wax. We can see an example in the Bible of this type of transaction if we look at Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 10 to 15. I'm not going to read those now. You can review those at your leisure. But this scroll was very likely the title deed to the earth. And I say this because we notice that as the seals are broken, things happen on the earth. And so we know it's connected with the earth, and the only one worthy to open the scroll, we will find in a second, is the Lamb himself. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who was worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" Now, he was not just announcing it, he was proclaiming it with a loud voice, announcing to everybody that to find out if there was anybody found worthy to open the scroll. Verse 3 says, "And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it." That means to look inside it. So the angel announces, is anybody worthy? And nobody is found worthy. The word strong is from the Greek iskuron or iskuo, which means strength or authority. Verse 4, "And I began to weep loudly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it." Now this word translated weep is klio. When we think of someone weeping, we think of them quietly in a corner, crying, shedding tears, not making a whole lot of sound. That's not what this word klio means in Greek. It means to weep, wail, or lament, implying not only the shedding of tears, but also every external expression of grief. So today we might say sobbing or crying strongly, or some other description that indicates that it was not just a quiet weeping. And I began to weep because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look at it. And one of the elders said to me, now, who are these elders? These are the 24, remember, that are encircling the throne. There's the throne with the king on it. There are the 4 living creatures around that, and around the 4 living creatures encircling the throne are the 24 elders. And those are, that's right, those represent the church. We who have been raptured from the earth and are now sitting in God's throne room with him as the events of the tribulation are about to unfold. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." First of all, the Lion of Judah, this is most likely a reference to Jacob's blessings on his 12 sons just before Jacob passed away. And when he came to Judah, he said this, "Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples." So this was a blessing, but it was also a prophetic declaration of who Judah would be, of which tribe the Messiah would come from. So he is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's also referred to as the Root of David. Now we think of him most frequently as the Son of David, because as we read in Matthew in our Sunday messages, he was a direct descendant of King David. So the Messiah was the son of David, but this says that he was the root of David. Yeah, that root of David means that he is the source, that David actually came from him. And if you stop and think about it, Christ was the creator who created heavens and earth and created Adam from the dust of the ground, and then Eve from the rib of Adam. So the creator literally produced the mankind. So Christ, as the creator, is the root of David, not only the offspring. The root of David has conquered. Now that word conquered is the Greek word nikao, and we looked at that earlier when we talked about the 7 churches and the letters to the 7 churches. You remember that each of the 7 churches had a message to the overcomers or the conquerors. And this is the word nikao. But it says that the root of David has conquered. This is most likely a reference to Christ's crucifixion and resurrection, that he has conquered not only the evil one, but all of sin. Verse 6, "And between the throne and the 4 living creatures, and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain." Do you know what an oxymoron is? Yeah, that's when you have an adjective defining a noun. The two seem to be opposites, like sweet sorrow or wonderful pain. They just don't go together, but one's used to describe the other. This looks like an oxymoron. He said, "I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain." Well, an animal, once it's killed, doesn't stand anymore, does it? No, it falls over dead, or if it is killed while it's lying down, it stays there. It doesn't stand up. But this lamb appeared to have been slain, and it was standing. And it had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Well, before we look at those, let's look at this word lamb. That's an important word in the book of Revelation, and we will see it over and over and over again. In the Bible, there are actually 4 different words that are used to describe a lamb or a sheep. There is probaton, which refers generically to a sheep. There is Aaron, which refers to a lamb or a young sheep. There's amnos, which refers to a sacrificial lamb. And there's arnion, which is the diminutive of Aaron, a lamb. That means it refers to a small one. So this word arnion really means a little lamb, or as we might call it, a lambkin. The use of this word in Revelation is striking, because this little lambkin will go up against the fierce red dragon and against the beasts, both the Antichrist and his false prophet. Revelation is the book of the little lamb. The word lamb only occurs twice in the Old Testament in reference to the Messiah, and only 4 times in the form amnos, a sacrificial lamb, in the New Testament outside the book of Revelation. And it appears twice in the plural as a form of arnion in the New Testament outside the book of Revelation. So that's 4, 6, that's only 8 occurrences of the word lamb throughout the Bible outside of Revelation. It appears in the book of Revelation 28 times, and always as arnion, little lambkin. This brings a new meaning to the passage in 1 Corinthians where it says of God, "But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God." This little lambkin who destroys all the evil forces is the perfect example of that passage. Now, this little lambkin had 7 horns. Horns throughout the Bible are a symbol of power. If you think of a ram had the big round horns, and he used those horns to bash into other rams and to other things. That was their power. So horns always represent power and frequently represent ruling power. 7, as we've mentioned before, represents completeness, the perfect number. So the fact that this little lambkin had 7 horns meant it was perfect in power. It was all-powerful, or omniscient. Omnipotent. He had 7 eyes, and eyes throughout the book of Revelation represent wisdom or knowledge. This is a representation of the fact that the Lamb is omniscient. He knows all things. In Daniel, we read a similar description. In Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, it says, "I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. He came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples and nations and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed." So he is, this little lamb is one who will rule forever. Then in verse 7 it says, "And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne." This little lambkin went up to the king and took the scroll from him. Verse 8, "And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints." Now I need to talk just a minute about these 24 elders. We mentioned them last week, but I want to review that again. Who do these 24 elders represent? That's right, the church. We who are saved during the church age and are raptured before this scene takes place. Why do I say that these are the church and not angels? Well, angels are spoken of as being dressed in white, as these were in the previous chapter. But these were also described as having golden crowns on their heads. Angels are never described as having crowns. So these who are dressed in white, indicating their purity, their righteousness, have to be the church. Now there are 24. We talked before about why are there 24? Because 24 represents the whole, the completeness of something. There were 24 ranks of priests in the temple. There were 24 groups of singers in the temple because that represented the whole. In this case, there are 24 elders that represent the church. Some have said they represent the church and the 12 apostles. The problem with that is that during this book of Revelation, and particularly in this scene, God is dealing with who again? The Jews. Yes, he's not dealing with Christians. Christians are present, but he's not dealing with them. Those who are on the earth, God is going to bring judgment against the unbelievers, but he is going to protect and defend the Jews who are on earth. And so during this tribulation time, in order to be saved, you have to believe like a Jew. And we don't know exactly what that will entail, but you have to basically be a Jew. And you will see throughout here the description of the warfare between the evil one and God's people, the Jews. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. Now, incense throughout the book of Revelation represents prayers. In fact, throughout the New Testament, it is a representation of prayers going up to God. So each of these that were falling down before him had bowls full of incense, and each holding a harp. When you look at cartoons or depictions of someone who has gone to the afterlife, who has passed away, they frequently will show someone sitting on a cloud with wings, playing a harp. And the implication is that everyone who dies ends up going up to heaven and playing a harp sitting on a cloud. That's not true. This section here shows us that it is only Christians who are playing harps. Verse 9, and they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation." Those who have fallen down to worship are singing a new song. And that song goes on to say, "And you have made them a kingdom of priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Now, some have said, because of the expression, "you have made them a kingdom," that these must not be Christians who represent the church. These must be angels, because they're saying, "you made them a kingdom and priests." Well, this is a real sticking point in this particular chapter. Theologians have been arguing this back and forth for thousands of years. And the reason for that, well, at least 2,000 years, the reason for that is because some Greek texts say, "you have made them a kingdom of priests to our God, and they shall reign." But other Greek texts that are just as notable say, "and you have made us a kingdom of priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth." Now, there's no way of telling which of those two is correct, except these are ones that are singing a song. And if you look carefully throughout the Bible, angels, when they said to be singing a song, it immediately says, and they said, or and saying. Angels, believe it or not, don't sing, according to what's in the Bible. Even at the announcement of Christ's birth, when the angels came to the shepherds, it says they said. So I believe that this is not angels that are doing this. They don't have crowns. And the 24 elders are the ones that are falling down and worshiping. Then I looked, and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voices of many angels. So first of all, the church is singing, and now he says, and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voices of many angels. So he's talking about a different group here. That's another reason why I believe that the ones singing previously were the church. These are angels that are singing. And it says, numbering, let me read that again. Then I looked and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands. Now, the word myriad comes from the Greek word myriades, which literally means 10,000. And that's why some translations you will see it says 10,000 times 10,000. Myriades is the largest number in the Greek language. So when they wanted to express a number that was uncountable, they would say myriads of myriads. Not myriads times myriads, but myriads of myriads, which simply means an uncountable number. So John is saying not that there are 10 million angels, but that there are an uncountable number of angels here. Then I looked, and I heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, not singing, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. Verse 13, and I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them saying, first of all, who did he hear? Every creature. Every created being, whether it's an animal or a human being, every single one, it says, was saying, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever. Now, at the time John's up in the throne room of God, there are many people down on earth who don't yet believe in God and who certainly wouldn't give him praise like that. So this is apparently a reference to the scene just before the great white throne judgment, when all people are assembled together and the unsaved are there, and they proclaim that God truly is worthy. Blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever. And the four living creatures said, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshipped. What an amazing scene as the little lambkin takes the scroll from the king, from God the Father, and the whole scene in heaven proclaims glory and praise to the little lambkin. And this little lambkin, in the next 18 chapters or so, will produce judgment on the earth and on the permanent earth dwellers. Let's pray.